Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Once again, Arrettres Hollins with Connecting Love and Marriage, and I have the dynamic opportunity to interview Miss Jessica Rich of Jessica Rich Coaching. She's doing dynamic things for our community and empowering and equipping women to take good care of themselves. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and your community.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Jessica, let the people know, what does Jessica Rich Coaching do? What's the big picture?
So Jessica Rich Coaching was founded after me starting my own journey,
Mhm.
getting to a place where I realized I wasn't pouring into myself. And as a corporate leader, as a sister and a daughter and a friend and a person to everyone but myself, I realized that as women, we carry so many hats, but at times we don't have anyone that we could really release on when we're the person that everybody releases to. And that can really, really affect our overall well being. So, Jessica Rich Coaching is an opportunity for me to really help women mostly in the corporate America space, navigate those challenges. So, whether that is work life harmony, making themselves a priority, my mission is to make sure I help women choose themselves first, whatever that specifically looks like. And that can also include self care. Every day is an opportunity for us to pour into ourselves. But when you're a woman that's always on the go, it's hard to add self care into the routine, or so we think. So I also help women find ways to how do you prioritize yourself throughout the day and making sure that you're pouring into yourself and not burning yourself out and experiencing anxiety. So I also provide support for that. But it really is for those women that feel like they're carrying it all, they're burnt out and they're exhausted, and they need someone to help guide them along the way to pour into themselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
That is amazing. And it sounds like you're describing the typical high achieving woman who's doing big things in the world for everyone else, but not taking the quality time to take care of herself. And I love that you highlight she's too busy doing all the things for everyone else and doesn't think she can fit it into her busy schedule. I love that. I love that. So let's dive on into one of these questions. So how did you start your journey? What was one of the first things that kind of opened up the door for you that let you know this is the journey you need to be on?
So in 2020, right before the pandemic, so the timing was perfect. I had gotten to a place where I was on the road. So I'm a leader in the insurance industry, and I was traveling throughout the country. So here I am traveling throughout the country, working long days, 6 days a week, and I'm being, like you said, all the things to everyone else. And I just got to a point where I was carrying so much that I was completely burnt out. So I started therapy, and through therapy, I realized that I seriously lack boundaries. But not only did I lack boundaries, I was carrying so much from all the other people who were dumping on me. And I know that's a word that some people are not comfortable with, but because I love everyone around me, I carry the weight of what you share with me. So
Mm.
through therapy, I learned to really prioritize myself. So I started self care, really focusing on self love, self worth. And when the pandemic shut down, I started fasting because my church was doing 6 a.m. prayer calls. So in addition to the prayer calls, I'm like, okay, I'll do some fasting while I'm in this season of healing. And I discovered you can still pour into people, but with boundaries. So as I went through the journey of learning what self care looks like for myself, how do I create a realistic routine? I also was praying, like, okay, God, I know that I'm good at these things. The things people come to me for, me being an ear, me giving guidance, I'm great at those things. I'm passionate at those things. But now that I know I need to pour into Jessica and be available and healthy for Jessica, how do I shift that? And that's what led me to coaching. Now, it took me maybe like a year before I even launched it because there was a little bit of self-doubt. I'll be completely honest. There was a little bit of self-doubt about what that looks like. Do I really have the capacity? But along the way, I even did a 21-day fast that I just specifically was asking God for guidance. Like, I need guidance in the season. What does this look like for me? And how is this going to play out? And through that, I was able to come up with what Jessica Rich coaching would look like, what services I will provide. I have a health and wellness company that also came out of that. And it really was me doing my own self work and really, really identifying like, how do you prioritize Jessica, but then also help others as well?
Wow. Honey, first of all, there's so many nuggets and so many notes from just the introduction. You talked about self-care, self-love, self-worth. Do you believe there's a difference between the three, or is it all encompassing of one concept?
Oh, that's a great question because I think that's one that sometimes we just lump them all together. For
Ah,
me, self care is how do I prioritize Jessica?
okay.
Like, how do I take care of Jessica? So it's me taking time to be with Jessica. And when I say Jessica, it's not manager Jessica. It's not coach Jessica. It's not the sister Jessica. It is just Jessica. So for me, that is me doing things that I enjoy, that really pours into me, that refills me, that recharges me, refreshes me. That is self-care for me. Self-worth is me understanding my values and what I am worthy of. So, at times we all experience self-doubt, but I made a commitment to myself and I call it like jumping from the branches. I will never stay in that negative state of mind. So self-worth is me. It's like me knowing what I'm worthy of, me knowing what I'm deserving of, what God has called me to have, and my heart's desires. And self-worth is that bucket. It's your values, knowing that what you're worthy of. Self-love is we don't always like ourselves,
Mm,
right? You look in the mirror, and I'm a person who has lost 85 pounds naturally, and I've also gained weight back. And there's been times where I look at myself and I'm like, I don't like this. I need Self-love is being able to say, like, I love you and your imperfections just the way you are. And if nobody else loves that about you, I love it. So I used to make it a habit of like finding something I love about myself today. So that's the difference between the three for me. Self-care is me pouring into myself. Self-worth is knowing my values and what I'm deserving of, what God has called me to be worthy of. And then self-love is like, I love the person that I am. And despite if anybody else loves me or not outside of God, I am just fine.
mm. Honey, you're dropping all the nuggets. Like, I love this. I love this, especially the distinction between and self-worth. So many times we let the voices of other people dictate who we believe we are. And the fact that you included God in that journey and pulled on him to find out um, who does he say you are? Because realistically, what he says is all that matters. I don't care what nobody say. If God said I am fearfully and wonderfully made, then I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Period. Roles and all.
Listen, and I was just about to say that. That's one thing that I was raised in church. And that's one thing my mom reminds me, even at 38, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And everybody doesn't have a parent or someone to remind them of that. So when I think about self-worth too, I have to believe that
Come
and
on.
know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Because if she's not around to tell me, I got to be able to tell myself and remind myself in those moments of self-doubt.
Come on, I love it. And it also sounds like you're tapping into that conversation you're having with yourself. What's that self-talk that you're having? What's that conversation that you're having with yourself that affirms who you believe you are? I saw a study, or maybe it was on our session together where it says that the voice that you hear in your head is normally the voice of your parents or whoever had the most impact in your life. And it's amazing that you had this amazing mom who poured into you and reminded you just how amazing Jessica was. Do you have any suggestions for women who don't have that or who didn't have that voice in their head or someone pouring into their life? Do you have any suggestions for them to navigate through that?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I do remember you said that, and that was a nugget you dropped. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense about that voice. But for those individuals who didn't have that foundation or don't have anyone, write it down. Like
Mm,
identify. And one thing I love to tell myself, like, you are worthy of your heart's desires.
Come on
You
now.
are worthy of it. So identifying what is it that you desire? What do you think you are worthy of? Write that out and then read it aloud.
Yeah.
And when you get in those moments of, because I do too. I'm not perfect. So if I have a moment of self-doubt, I always say, okay, you can have it, you're not going to sit in it. And then
Yeah.
I would think of three positive thoughts after that. So if I sit in
Mm,
it and have the self-doubt, then I'm going to say, you will accomplish this. You will be this. You will have a successful event. And that allows me to get away from that. And that's agreement that I have with myself. So I would definitely encourage them to write it out, read it. Also, something I found to be very helpful is record it and play it back. When you hear your voice reminding you, that is also very helpful. So when you talk about that voice that you hear from someone else, you will hopefully get in the habit of hearing yourself, right? Repeat the things that remind you that you got to get away from that. And then also I would say is if you're talking negatively to yourself, ask yourself why. And
mm,
I've been able to just recently, goodness, just very recently, I've had the opportunity when I've been able to unpack, like, why am I thinking this way?
mm,
And when I discovered it, it happened to be a situation where I realized like I was trying to be in control. And
mm,
that is something that I needed to let go. So I also think you need to unpack it. But unfortunately, everybody does not have that foundation to help build them up and give that confidence. So
mm,
you have to be that person for yourself. And then also check your community. Think
mm,
that we have supportive friends, a supportive partner. It could
mm.
be family. But sometimes we have people around us who will chip away at our confidence and we don't realize it and we internalize that. So sometimes we have to distance ourselves from those individuals as well.
Yes, I love it. It sounds like the core foundation of what you're saying. The root of it is having a self-awareness, first of all. Paying attention to those thoughts, paying attention to what you're saying. Because sometimes we just idly thinking thoughts and it's negativity and we're just so accustomed to rehearsing it, and it's not till we
Yeah.
catch those thoughts and say, wait a minute, I shouldn't be thinking so negatively about myself. So it sounds like you're saying we need to have a deep awareness of who we are, the thoughts that we're thinking, what we're saying about ourselves, and possibly the root of where those thoughts come from.
Yeah. And be willing to say, even though you may not 100% believe or in a mood to think positive,
Mhm.
challenge yourself. I
Mm,
heard Oprah say once, and maybe it was an interview, how she has negative thoughts, but she
yeah.
also has an agreement with herself. Like she's not going to sit in it too long. So she had like a time limit. And it was maybe like, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to sit in this. And then you got to wake up, girl. You got to snap. So
Yeah.
I really think it's also important to challenge yourself to be self aware to say, where I am, what I'm doing right now, I gotta snap out of it and then figure out what snapping out of it looks like and
Yeah.
then address it. But you're absolutely aware. You gotta have self-awareness, and sometimes that's not comfortable.
Yes, I love it. I love it. As a single woman, why is it so important to practice self-care?
So the reason why I think it's important is, I desire marriage.
Okay.
I desire to have children. A lot of that comes with my desire for legacy,
Mm,
and breaking generational patterns. I want to be able to, now that I've done the work, I think it's important for me to be able to show the generations after me and my family. And in order for me to meet someone and desire that, I think it's important for me in my single season to know how to take care of Jessica.
mm,
Sometimes you hear individuals say, well, when I meet my partner, I'll travel and I'll experience this. And for me, self care is an opportunity for me to live and identify what Jessica enjoys and the things that make me happy so that when I meet someone, they would also be able to see that. And I feel like at times we expect individuals who we're dating, and I think about just my last relationship, right? You see how I pour into Jessica, so then you will know what makes Jessica happy and what makes Jessica smile. But I do it for myself,
yeah.
not to say I want you to see it, but I know that's going to be something you observe. So I tell a lot of single women, don't wait for someone to buy you flowers, to take you walking, to take you traveling. I like to do a lot of self-care weekends in the DFW area just to explore different hotels and restaurants. And that's a way that I pour into myself. But I think in our single season, we have to know what makes us smile, what makes us feel good, how we cheer ourselves up. And if you have a realistic everyday self-care routine, you're going to be able to establish that without including someone else in that equation. And for me, I think that's important, especially being single over the last 4 years. There's so many things that I've learned about myself just through practicing self care.
Wow, I love that. You would be fascinated because I coach wives, but the number of women who don't know what fully makes them happy, and then they're expecting their husbands to bring them joy and bring them happiness. What makes you happy isn't gonna make me happy. The whining and dining, I'm good. No, I don't need that. Let me get some pajamas, let's sit on the couch, eat some ice cream, get some takeout, and I'm good. So I love that you're empowering women to identify what makes them happy, enjoy their season so that when they are presented with a man who wants to love them, they're already naturally doing it on their own. So he just gonna fall in line with what you're already doing. I love it. I love it. Um, how has self-care affected your relationships?
So, I come from a big family. I have 7 siblings, and I am pretty close with my siblings and my parents. And the one thing self care has really helped me with is establish boundaries.
Mm,
And, I hear a lot of people say, well, my mom won't let me do that, or my sister won't do that, or it's hard to keep your boundary in place. And very early on, I was able to communicate with my family and friends, like, this is crossing a boundary that I've set and it's making me uncomfortable, or I don't have capacity to talk about this.
mm,
And it has really, really helped not only strengthen our relationships, but it has also helped me maintain my peace because I can't start my day with a conversation about something that happened negatively. It
mm,
I just don't have the capacity for it. So now, my family will say, "Do you have capacity for this?" And I can say, "Do you have capacity?" before sharing because everybody doesn't have it. And I think by me really focusing on self care and having those boundaries in place, I've seen them do the same with their friends.
mm,
And it really, really makes a difference of how we respect one another. Parents, regardless of any age, they're still your parents and they think that they can tell you whatever. But it's
mm.
like, hey, I really need you to respect this space for me right now because I don't like the way the conversation feels, or I just don't have the capacity. And to see them embrace it and get to that place has been absolutely wonderful. And it helps me maintain my peace and really, really reduce anxiety. So it's really created a healthy space for my relationships.
Yes. My favorite words are boundaries and capacity. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity for that right now. And especially as high achieving women, ambitious women, women who are doing so many things, we have to know when we have reached that boiling point and it's time for us to pull back from everything. And I can't engage in that conversation. I know you have a lot that you want to put on me right now, but I can't even carry myself right now.
Right. Exactly.
And I love that your family is also aligning with that because, like you mentioned, parents, that can be challenging because you're still their baby girl and they feel they can just have these conversations um, that might trigger, that might create too much stress and anxiety in your life. So, in those situations, when a parent is not aligning, you're setting your boundary. It's beyond your capacity. What's one tip you can give someone or suggestion where their parent is just not aligning with the boundary?
So this response is a tough response, but I will say there have been women in my community who have had to go without speaking to their parents
Mm,
because if you continue to allow them to cross the boundary, they will never respect it. And I'm not encouraging anyone to not talk to their parents, but you have to stand firm on it and reiterate that this is a boundary for me. I know that you're my parent, that you love me, but I'm still an adult. I'm a human. I have feelings, and I don't have the capacity for it. So if you're not going to be able to respect this, then maybe we have to disconnect the call. I know I've had friends who've gone months without speaking to their parents because they don't want to respect the boundary. And the more that you give in and you don't stand firm on it, the more that they'll never respect it. So I think you have to be at a place where you have to say, this is a boundary. I've said it. If you can't respect it, maybe we need to disconnect the call or let's circle back later, right? When I'm in a better place. But right now, I don't have the capacity for it and I can't continue the conversation. And I've had to have something similar with my mother, just to say, I can't do it. This is what I've expressed. And I'm going to honor myself in this moment. And
Mm,
she got it. We never had to have that conversation again. That's not the reality for everyone, but as long as you allow them to disrespect it or to not fall in line, they will never accept it and it will be a never ending cycle for you. So you have to figure out what's the best approach. You don't want to be rude, but maybe it is, you know what, this conversation isn't going anywhere and it seems that you're not understanding the boundary. Let's circle back when it's a better time for both of us and we can revisit it so that you can respect it and I can respect you as my parent.
yes, yes. It's giving, compromise and trying to be a peacemaker. You're not just saying, let me just cut you off, but let's circle back later on. Let's have a conversation later on about this. Right now isn't the time. So I love that it's not just because we're a cancel society, we're a cut people off, we're a block society nowadays. You got one time to mess up and we control alt delete everything. But I love that you're willing to have that dialogue of saying, not right now. Let's recap later. Let's touch back maybe later on. Maybe if I'm feeling this is a conversation we need to have. I
Right.
love.
And I think with self-care, it brings you to a place, at least for me, where peace is so important to my life. So things that would bother me, I don't allow it to bother me. I'm not going to have this conversation, or I'm not going to allow you to trigger me because in certain situations, specifically that, it can start to be very triggering, right? Because now you're thinking about these experiences that you may have had as a child where you
Mm,
didn't feel respected by adults. So now
mm,
you're bringing up all these emotions that may then will pour into the conversation. And now you're not even responding to the boundary situation. You're responding to all these other things that have been triggered. So I think with self-care too, it really puts you at a place where your tone is a certain way and you learn to just say it firmly and let that be it.
honey, you going into all the right areas. Tone. You don't necessarily have to pop off and start hollering, you can use a tone and help everybody get an understanding without losing yourself in the process. I love it. So what is a self-wellness coach?
A self-wellness coach, just kind of similar to what I said earlier, is someone who provides support. And you call her the high achieving woman. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So very much so. The woman that's on the go,
Mm,
always hustling, bustling, and is a support for them. Like we're gonna look at your life and say, how do we help you integrate your personal and professional life? Being a mother, being a wife. I'm not a mother or a wife, but helping you look at your schedule and figure out how do we make you a priority. One thing I hear from clients all the time is like, I don't have time to focus on myself. I got to go to soccer. I got to do this. I got to do that. And a self wellness coach really helps you reevaluate your life and find time in your day that you think you don't have that you truly do have to make yourself a priority. Whether that's starting your day 15 minutes earlier, how are you maximizing your lunchtime? For the introverts, how are you recharging yourself throughout the day so you don't feel like you're exhausted at the end of the day where you can't even pour into yourself in other activities? But it's really a guide to walk along with you to say, you're navigating this very busy lifestyle, this anxiety, this stress, this burnout. Let me help you find the balance where you can make yourself a priority throughout the day, which looks realistically for you. So what it works for me is not going to work for you. maybe this one client only has an hour in that 24 hours, and someone else may only have 30 minutes, but that 30 minutes is the start to get them on the path to create a consistent routine.
Wow, I love this. And it sounds like it's a personalized plan. There's so many gurus out there giving you one blueprint and they want everyone to follow it. But it sounds like what you are offering your community is a personalized plan based on their needs and their lifestyle and even their personality. Because you mentioned introverts. Introverts, they recharge different from an extrovert. Completely different. I'm an introvert, so honey, look, I
Yeah.
understand.
I'm an introvert, and most people are like, I didn't pick that up. Well, you sometimes you have to put on
Uh,
where you can't, but at the end of the day, you are completely wiped out because
Yeah,
you have poured into everyone else and you don't have anything to give yourself.
yes. I'll jokingly say that I'm an introvert that knows how to perform. So I get on the stage and do what needs to be done. But when it's time to get off that stage, it's time for me to go back to my cocoon. Okay.
Yeah.
My preference is always to be somewhere sitting by myself.
Completely understand.
Mhm. So, how do you support women? And you've been touching on this entire time, but are there specific ways that you're supporting women now, like your programs and offers?
Yes. So I do have individual one-on-one coaching that I provide to women, and that's what you're talking about. That's more personalized, right? And then I also host women improvement calls, which are monthly, and we're going to pick those back up next month. And that's allow women to have conversations that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. It's a wide variety. So we talked about self-care, money management. We talked about the struggles in the workplace, self-love, self-worth. Next month, we're going to talk about forgiveness.
Mm,
But created a community where we're talking about all these different topics, but then we can be vulnerable because I think at times we're so afraid to share when we have struggles and challenges because we're supposed to be this superwoman. So I've created a space where women can come and be themselves and ask questions and share their experiences and bounce off one another. So that's also a community that I've created. And then also, I also are now hosting retreats, which we kind of briefly talked about. But one thing that I've noticed is women struggle with the thought that they deserve a vacation
mm,
or the thought that it's okay to take PTO. I use my PTO. It's my PTO. I take it. I am not going to be the person that retires with 500 hours of PTO.
there
I
you
am
go.
not going to be the person that retires with 500 hours of PTO. But I meet so many women that are like, I'm burnt out. I'm like, when's the last time you take vacation? And they'll tell me they're maxed out. So I started to host retreats to encourage women to say, hey, these are other like minded women who need the break, who needs to choose themselves, and we're going to go and we're going to take a trip and experience together and pour into one another. So that's one thing that's new to my community, but definitely will continue on in 2025 and moving forward. And then I had you as a guest on my podcast, but I also created a podcast, Leaving a Rich Legacy, which allows me to discuss various topics for the Black and Brown community specifically that applies to women and what we struggle with from a more of a I want to say expert because a lot of people don't like to be called an expert, but individuals who have a lot of life experiences and are specifically specializing in certain areas.
Yes, yes, I love it. You've created a safe space for women to take the cape off and be poured into. I love it, and the fact that you're having retreats, I can't remember last time I heard of a retreat for women that was of high caliber. So I'm looking forward to, because everything that I've seen and experienced with you has been of high caliber. It's been excellent. It's been, I'm a bougie chick sometimes, so I'm a bougie girl, so I'm all for experiencing luxury and especially as women of color, Black and brown women, luxury is a new term that we're allowing ourselves to experience.
Yes.
So I love that you're creating retreats and these events where women can experience luxury and pampering and be poured into the way that they're pouring into others. Awesome. So, um, one other thing, what is one thing, of course, 2024, there's so many things going on right now. What do you think is the number one thing that you want women to make sure that they're doing to take proper care of them? You've already given so many nuggets, but what's one thing that you just want to make sure if you're not doing anything else, I need you to do this?
I would say, when you think about prioritizing yourself and self-care, people think you have to spend all this money. And the one thing that I would encourage women is to, if you don't do anything else, start the beginning of your day with yourself.
Mm,
I've heard someone say recently that, they have a younger child and the child is in the bed. So they start the day with self. Give yourself an additional 20 minutes before the baby wakes up.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
don't do anything else, spend time with yourself. I'm a woman of faith, so I'm starting my day with some type of devotional. I do spend a lot of my time with, something, a sermon in the morning or something positive. Whatever it is, I challenge women to the first 20 minutes of your day is the alpha stage where it's the most impressionable. So if you take that time, whether you are sitting still in silence, you're meditating, you're reading a devotional, um, you're doing something that is focusing on you, just you, nobody else, not being a wife, not being a mom, not looking at the news, not looking at social media. But I would encourage them to start just the first 20 minutes of their day with themselves and see the difference that it'll make in their lives.
yes, yes. I love it. I love it. Guilt free. I love
Guilt
it.
free, comparison free,
Come
you
on now.
know, comparison free. When you start your day with Instagram and social media, you are starting your day comparing yourself to someone else who, as we say, is their highlight reel. That is not reality. So when you remove that from your day and you are again starting with just yourself, for me, it's going to be a moment. As soon as I wake up, thank you for waking me up. I start with
Yeah.
gratitude. But whatever that looks like for you, you got to say, this is my time and it is non negotiable. And it makes a world of a difference.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love it. I love it. Everything you've shared so far has been amazing. So, how can my community connect with you and what you're doing? Where can they find you?
So I am Coach Jessica Rich on Instagram, and I'm also Coach Jessica Rich on YouTube. I'm going to be completely honest and transparent. The YouTube, we're moving a little bit slow there. When I think about capacity, I know when to pause projects. So, Coach Jessica Rich on Instagram, on YouTube. My podcast is also on my YouTube as well, Leaving a Rich Legacy. So you definitely could start there at Coach Jessica Rich on Instagram, and then jessicarichcoaching.com is my website.
Wonderful, wonderful. And all of your contact information, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see it in the description. So go ahead, scroll down. First of all, click subscribe and then scroll down and connect with Jessica. She's doing dynamic things. Thank you so much, Jessica. You've shared so many nuggets and helpful tips that I know women can use to empower themselves, to uplift themselves, and to live that life that they truly desire. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, y'all. Well, go ahead and hit that, go down to the description and connect with Jessica. Okay. Bye.
Bye.